APA Decoded Part 1, Formatting Basics. In this section, we're going to discuss the line spacing, margin size, paragraph alignment, typeface and font, using unbiased language, and headings. So when we're writing in APA format, there's actually a very specific format that we're required to use. When we write in APA format, we're required to use double spacing. So the APA manual does tell us that we must double space. And double spacing looks like our top example here on the right. So no single spacing, please. And if you're wondering why must we double space? In the old days, when we used to print our papers and turn them in, it's so that our professors or editors could write comments and edits in the margins or in between the lines on our papers. Now, if you're a student in one of my classes, you'll notice that this is where I diverge from APA, and I traditionally tell my students to single space. But if you're using APA format for a different instructor's course and they ask you to use APA format, please double space for those other classes. APA format also specifies the margin size and paragraph alignment, so you must have at least 1-inch margins on all 4 sides of your paper, so that's top and bottom and left and right. And again, that's going back to that traditional method of using those margins to write feedback when someone's reading your paper, when the paper's printed out. And then paragraph alignment, the paragraphs are aligned, text is aligned to the left. And you can see that in our example paper here. See the left alignment, and the lines are kind of ragged though on the right side. Also notice that the first line of the paragraph is indented. APA does prefer 12-point font, and you must use Times New Roman. So this is this never changes. It's always 12-point Times New Roman. It's also asked that when you're writing your paper, you strive as much as you can to use unbiased language. So bias is referring to when you imply or you have irrelevant evaluation of a group or groups that you're writing about, and you have to be very careful not to use or imply bias with regard to someone's race or ethnicity or their age or their disability, their sexual orientation, or their gender when you're writing about different people or groups in your research. And there's different things that we can do as researchers when we're writing to make sure we're very careful and we're very unbiased in our research. So we can be cognizant of our level of specificity in our writing. We can be very sensitive to the labels that are used. So for example, instead of using he or she as pronouns in my paper, it might be more appropriate to use people or a person or a respondent or a participant in my study, or if I'm studying children, maybe a child. So taking out gender labels, for example, might be more appropriate. Now let's talk about the 5 heading system and how to organize our paper in terms of the appropriate use of headings. And this is really important because it helps to organize the flow of your paper, rather like using breadcrumbs for Hansel and Gretel, so you can lead your reader into your paper and also help lead your reader out. If you have whether it's a short paper or a long paper, it's easy for a reader to get lost in a long paper or a short paper and not know really where are you going. And that's why headers are really, really, really important to use. So 3 important points to remember before I show you the 5 header system is, first, all headers of equal importance are given the same heading level. Second, use only as many heading levels as needed. So don't use them all if you don't need to use them all. And third, If a section can be divided into 2 or more subsections, assign each subsection a heading. So let's take a look at some examples, and we'll start with the first heading level. So heading level 1 is centered, boldface, title case, heading. And this would be things like method, results, discussion, and references. Again, you'll see in your paper, these would be bold. Typically, you don't use different color fonts, so these would be bold, black, centered. The title case, meaning the first letter is capitalized and the letters behind that first letter are lowercase. And they're right there in the middle. If I had more than one word, like, I'm trying to think of an example here, like final conclusion, which you typically wouldn't say, but let's say I had that final conclusion, the F would be capitalized and the C would be capitalized. That's what I mean by title case. All right, let's take a look at heading level 2 now. Okay, heading level 2 is flush left, boldface, title case. So here we have an example where these are a subheading below methods, and these are participants, measures, and procedures. So we're organizing our paper in terms of the hierarchy here with our heading levels, and I've taken out the other things because they didn't fit on the slide, but they're still in our paper that we're writing. And in your paper, the participants and measures and procedures are all going to fit in the methods section. So they're below that in terms of how you would organize your paper. And that's why they're heading level 2. They're all off to the flush left side. So you can see how that's working. If there was more words in it, you would still capitalize the first letter of that subheading, the first letter of each word, if you will. All right, let's take a look at heading level 3. Heading level 3 is still flush left, boldface, but now it's italicized. That's the big difference. It's still also title case, where each letter at the beginning of the word is capitalized. So for my example here, I'm getting more specific under measures. I have 2 different measures that I want to talk about. I want to talk about self-esteem measures, and I want to talk about gender equality indicators. So I've created 2 subheadings here in my measures section where I want to get into more detail in my paper. So this is where I'm going to use my heading level 3 to get into more detail. So I've now used heading level 3, and I've italicized these subheadings to be able to get into more detail. And so you can see how they're italicized, but they're also still title case, and they're also still flush left. So I'm indicating to the reader this hierarchy of organization, and that's great because I'm giving them basically a subliminal message as to how my paper is organized in case they get lost and they need to work backwards. Okay. Heading level 4, the difference here is we're now indenting. And not only are we indenting, but it's also starting at the beginning of a paragraph. So let's say I need to get more into the weeds in my gender equality indicators in my paper. So below that, I want to have 2 more subheadings. I want to have a gender gap index section where I talk about that, and I want to have a women's suffrage section where I talk about that. So those 2 subheadings are going to be heading level 4. So heading level 4 is indented, boldface, still title case. It's a paragraph heading now, meaning right after I give my heading, I end it with a period, and I start right into my paragraph. So whenever you indent with heading level 4, and you'll also see this with heading level 5, you start right into your paragraph. The only difference is your paragraph text isn't bold, or later for heading 5, it's not going to be bold and italicized. Okay, so you can kind of see how that looks here. And again, you see that beautiful hierarchy with method, and then from method we branch out into participants and measures and procedure, and from measures I'm getting more specific into self-esteem and gender equality indicators, and from gender equality indicators I'm getting more specific into gender gap index and women's suffrage. But I could get even more specific if I wanted to. So I bet you're all waiting, what's next? How is she going to get more specific? Well, I already kind of hinted at that. The next heading level is to italicize what I've already done. And since I'm running out of room, I'm going to do this under self-esteem. So I erased all that other stuff because I was running out of slide room. Let's do this under the self-esteem part. So I've got heading level 1 with method, heading level 2 with participants and measures, heading level 3 with self-esteem. I threw in a new heading level 4 under self-esteem with socioeconomic indicators. And then under socioeconomic indicators, I've made 2 heading level 5s, gross domestic product per capita and the Human Development Index. What's special about these? These are indented, they're bold-faced, they're italicized, they're also title case. Notice first letter of every word is capitalized. And they also end with a period, and then we start into the paragraph right away. So that's a hierarchy of 5 ways to organize your paper. There's nothing past heading level 5, but you really don't need anything past heading level 5 typically. That's a lot of ways to organize your paper. Okay, I hope that helps you.